Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And in today's video, we have one final Big 12 pick preview, this time from CBS Sports. We go over their picks to win the Big 12 in terms of standings, who's playing in Arlington for the Big 12 title game. They also give their most overrated and underrated teams headed into the 2023 season, and also have some spicy, bold predictions. And if you're a Red Raider fan, well, you're really going to like what Dennis Dodd had to say. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for the latest Texas Tech football news and rumors all year long. We're going to be giving you game previews, 3 keys to the game, film breakdowns, and much more. And the best part about it, it's 100% free. So join the largest Texas Tech community and most engaging Texas Tech community here on YouTube in the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, before we get into everything, I just want you to give me a simple prediction. Who will win the Big 12 title this season? You can give me the regular season. You can give me the one in Arlington. I don't care. Give me 2 if you want. But let me know down in the comments below who you think will win the Big 12 title in 2023. All right. We've got a lot to discuss here because when you look at everything in terms of what CBS Sports does, they're one of my favorites when it comes to college football coverage. I think they do a phenomenal job. They don't get a lot of credit media-wise in terms of the national landscape, even though they are national media reporters. I think they do a phenomenal job of covering the Big 12, especially at the local level. But let's jump into their Big 12 standings. And no, it won't be on the screen, but I'll verbalize them for you. Every expert except David Cobb has Texas winning the Big 12 title in 2023. Every expert also has Kansas State or Oklahoma facing the Longhorns in the Big 12 title game out in Arlington, except for one. I told you, Texas Tech fans, you're really going to like Dennis Dodd in this one. Dennis Dodd has Texas Tech playing the Longhorns in back-to-back weeks, and we'll have more on that later in the video, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Texas Tech landed no lower than 5th in everybody's projected standings, except for one. Barrett Sally, who picked the Red Raiders to finish 8th in the Big 12 conference. And listen, I can understand 5th. I really can. But 8th? You have 18 starters coming back. You're one of the oldest teams in the Big 12, let alone the country when it comes down to it. The only other team that has projected starters, at least more of them back, is Kansas. Right? But Texas Tech is an old team. It's the second year of Joey McGuire, second year in the defensive system of Tim DeRuyter, and the same can be said for the offensive system for Zach Kittley. I get 5th. I really do. Maybe they underperform, and that's 100% a possibility. But 8th feels like a drastic stretch considering some of the teams that he had ahead of him. And UCF, who he had picked 3rd, a newcomer to the Big 12, BYU 5th, and then Cincinnati 7th. 3 newcomers to the Big 12 ahead of Texas Tech. I just personally don't see that happening. I think it's bold. It wasn't his bold prediction. It was just his standings. But in my opinion, that's super bold. But let me know from you guys, all right? I want you guys to tell me, scale of 1 to 14. Yes, there's 14 teams in the Big 12 this year. Where will Texas Tech finish in the Big 12 standings in 2023? Just give me a number. If you think they're going to finish first, give me first. If you think they're going to finish 14th, dead last in the conference, put 14, and anything in between, let me know down in the comments below. All right, transitioning to the most overrated aspect of their article, and this was actually really fun to read. We got them down on the screen in terms of their names and who they picked. But Oklahoma, they said, Texas is the favorite, but Oklahoma is the preseason rankings and among the teams expected to challenge. I'm not fully buying into that, at least not yet. Venable still has to show he can get this team to play up to that level. And that was the guy and Jerry Palm who wrote that. But other people agreed, including Shihad, and then you got Barrett and Will Backus as well. When you look at the next team that they mentioned, and this was David Cobb and Dennis Dodd in terms of the overrated team, they put the Longhorns. They said this: the Longhorns went just 8-5 last season and haven't appeared in the Big 12 title game since the league began playing one again in 2017. Yet we're supposed to believe the Longhorns are back simply because they're more talented than the rest of the league. Newsflash: Texas has often been the Big 12's most talented program since the end of the Mac Brown's coaching tenure, and his success has not followed for the program. Listen, I'll be honest, I have Texas as one of the best teams in the Big 12, but I get it from the standpoint of, hey, what have you actually done with that talent? I think Texas is actually going to be a really solid team this year, but I can understand this logic because, again, what have you proven with this talent over the past decade? Not really that much at all, except for one 10-win season. So I can get that, but I do think Texas is actually going to be a really good team this year. The next team they brought up in terms of overrated was TCU. TCU was fantastic last year, but it went 6-1 in one-score games and then lost a lot of pivotal players. No team in the country had more close wins than TCU. And then this last one, Iowa State, I'm not sure on this one who thinks Iowa State is actually going to be good with everything going on with Hunter Deckers and everybody in their program losing their starting running back, at least projected starting running back. But Chip Patterson says this about Iowa State being overrated. I'm worried this is going to come off as piling on, but the issues in and around the Iowa State football program are going to make it tough to foresee a 10th place finish in the conference, which is where the Cyclones were picked for the preseason media poll. So he thinks that even with Iowa State being projected to finish 10th, that they're overrated. That is a little brutal. And he may be right. Maybe that is piling on a little bit when it comes to the Cyclones. But let me tell you. You tell me who is the most overrated team in the Big 12 going into the 2023 season. Again, I think there's a couple of options, but I also think that this conference is pretty much wide open when it comes down to it. But I want you to tell me who is the most overrated team headed into the 2023 season in the Big 12. All right, let's get to the most underrated teams, and we'll start with Kansas. They had this to say, did Backus and Cobb about Kansas. Kansas may not be in the position to compete for the league title, but it does have the potential to catch a couple of hopeful teams off guard. The schedule could lend itself to 8 wins. Again, they have a ton of starters coming back. And when you look at it, I think, again, with all those returning starters, right, Jalen Daniels is the most pivotal player in the Big 12 for any team, right? And I think if he stays healthy, I think 8 wins is definitely in the card for the Jayhawks. All right, Oklahoma State was the next team they brought up. They basically just said, hey, Mike Gundy's a really good coach. We don't foresee another bad season. And not to mention, they catch a ton of breaks where they don't have to face Texas or TCU on their schedule. So a lot going right for Oklahoma State, when it comes to the schedule. And they did a pretty solid job in the portal as well. When it comes to Texas Tech, each year since 2018, one Big 12 team has ridden close game luck to a conference championship game. Why not the Red Raiders in 2023? Sheehan and Dodd are both in agreement. They are super high on the Red Raiders. Both of those guys are. And then I thought this was interesting. Chip Patterson had a really interesting, probably the most interesting overrated pick. I think he also has the most interesting underrated pick. He thinks Texas is underrated. Don't wave your hand with the same old Texas expectation, because this is the best Texas team that the Longhorns have had in a while, and they deserved a top 10 ranking until proven otherwise. I think from a talent perspective, he's spot on. This is by far the most talented team Texas has had in the last decade. It's, again, do they live up to those expectations, which I think is a more than fair question, right? And then last but not least, they have UCF. This is from Sally, dual threat QB. John Reese Plumlee, is the perfect fit for Coach Gus Malzahn's offense, and will put up video game numbers even in the first year of the Big 12. They will remain in the conference title race until mid-November and will finish the regular season in the top 15 nationally. Sally's got some spicy takes when it comes to this article. Let me hear your spicy take, though, in terms of who is the most underrated team in the Big 12 heading in to the 2023 season. Again, I think there's quite a bit of options when it comes down to it, but let me know yours when it comes to the most underrated team heading in to the 2023 campaign. All right, real quick, let's discuss their bold predictions, and we'll go each person real fast. We'll start with Dennis Dodd. He says this: coming off its best season in 9 years, Texas Tech wins the Big 12 in Joey McGuire's second season. Most interestingly, Texas Tech gets Texas in consecutive weeks on Black Friday, in Austin, and December 2nd in the Big 12 title game. There you go, spicy. Then you've got everybody in the league will win at least 3 conference games. I don't know if that's spicy. I guess on the West Virginia front, it may be in Iowa State as well. Patterson then went on to say Texas running back CJ Baxter will be amongst the top freshmen in the entire country, regardless of the position. I think there's a potential shot for that for sure. Sally then went on to say Texas will roll into the Big 12 championship game with an 11-1 record and need to get by Kansas State to make the college football playoff. He didn't say if they'd actually do it or not. Jihan says Texas will pull off the upset of the season by winning at Alabama. The Longhorns will then follow it up with a dominant win in Dallas against Oklahoma, but then lose to Houston in their lone matchup as the conference opponents. All right. Palm said life is going to be pretty tough for the 4 newcomers of this league. I don't think that's a bold prediction. I think that that's going to be pretty accurate outside of maybe UCF. Cobb says Texas will beat Alabama in week 2 and catapult into the top 5 of the AP top 25 poll for the first time since 2010 as a result. But the Longhorns will pick up 2 losses elsewhere before Selection Sunday and miss the playoff. Now, listen, Texas and Texas Tech fans really don't like each other right now. Perfect example is on my Twitter, and if you haven't followed me on Twitter, go do so now at RCMB323. But Backus ends the bold predictions for CBS Sports Crew by saying this. In week 2, both Texas and Texas Tech will win their big-time matchups against Alabama for Texas and Oregon for Texas Tech. Okay, there you go. And that's going to do it for the CBS Sports Big 12 preseason picks. Again, I really like CBS Sports. Let me know your thoughts on them. I think they do a phenomenal job and are one of the more underrated outlets nationally when it comes to covering college football. One more time, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video if you're excited to have Big 12 and college football back in general. The couch never looks so good on Saturday mornings, let me tell you that. I am RC Maxfield reminding you, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for the latest Texas Tech football and Big 12 football news and rumors all year long on your one-stop shop for everything Texas Tech football. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.